living life big, and I really believe that we are intended to live life big, that life itself is to be experienced in deep and big and beautiful ways, and life is to be shared in big and beautiful ways. So you're all feeling the energy of it, right? You're feeling into the zeal. You've been doing the affirmation. Oh. Well, listen, you don't have to wait till the end of the service today to do the affirmation, because we're going to do it right here and right now, because every single moment when we are opening ourselves up to how we want to show up in the world, we can use this affirmation to invite us into doing it with zeal. And so just open your chest up, open your arms if you feel comfortable, and let us affirm together. Through the power of zeal, I am enthusiastic, audacious, and devoted. I live passionately, daringly, and wholeheartedly. Do you feel it? Right? Like the power of that, the power of us really stepping into not only speaking the affirmation, but embodying what that affirmation is all about. Now, for those of you who may not have been here for the beginning part of our 3-week series that ends today, just going to go over it a little quickly, but we've been talking about the power of zeal and the power of enthusiasm and how we can bring more enthusiasm into everything that we do and into our lives. And we've said that zeal is enthusiasm, it is audacity, and it is devotion. And we talked the first week about the 3 ways in which we can really harness the power of zeal: following our bliss, really getting clear about what brings us joy, and doing more of those things. We talked about getting out of victim mode and really being aware of the fact that we are the creators and manifestors of our own life and experiences. And we have talked about stimulating into ourselves a state of enthusiasm, a state of really feeling that zeal. And haven't we been doing that? Right? Like the last couple of weeks, that's what we've been doing, stimulating that power within us and then allowing it to be unleashed out into the world, right? So last week then, that was the first week. Last week, we talked about once we know the power that is within us, how can we direct that power in really powerful ways? And last week, by the way, how great was it to have Reverend Chris back last week and be a part of it? It was really nice to have him here. And so he and I spoke about purpose and values and being very clear about how the more clear we are about those things, we can not only harness zeal, but we can maintain zeal. And our capacity for zeal actually grows when our life has meaning and when we give meaning to that which we do. So this week, we're going to talk about playing it big. It's about becoming greater than ourselves. Now, when I say that, I want to recognize that it's getting greater than ourselves, the lowercase o, that part in us that has the ideas of being limited, the self-judgments, the part in us that asks us very shyly to play it small, but we sometimes listen to it, right? And so it's really moving beyond that lowercase ourselves to that uppercase ourselves. Because the moment that I believe we move into our purpose and values in deep ways and live life to the fullest, we all of a sudden are able to be about not only us or our individual selves, but we are doing it for the sake and for the uplifting of the community itself, for the collective. And that is really powerful, to be aware that the way in which we show up in life in big ways has an energetic uplifting of the community and of the human family. And so we really do that by, and what I want to share with you is being clear and being intentional about the legacy that we are creating. Right? So we harness the power of zeal. We start living into our values and our purpose more fully. And then we start recognizing that as we do, we are having an effect on life. We are having an effect on humanity itself. And the more that we're intentional about who we are as legacy givers into the world, the more capacity for zeal that creates within us. Now, Lin-Manuel Miranda in Hamilton says this: what is legacy? It is planting seeds in gardens you never get to see. But the beauty is that although we may not see it, we can already envision it, can't we? And we can envision who we are as we plant the seeds and allow the joy to come through in knowing that we are growing something, and be able to envision the ways in which that garden will have an effect on those around us and future generations. And that in itself can also bring us a sense of fulfillment and excitement about life. Legacy is the residue of a life well lived. And many times when we talk about legacy, people go into, inheritance, right? But it's more than it's not about leaving what we've earned. It's about leaving behind what we've learned, right? And that's the way that consciousness continues to rise up and continues to grow and evolve, because we get it to a certain place and then we are so open to recognizing that those that come after us will lift it up even more. And heaven will become easier and easier and easier for us and those after us to be a state that we live in. It's more about passing down our values than what our valuables are. And that's why it's important that we recognize what it is that we value, so that we start living it in a way that brings about a shift in not only our consciousness, but a shift in the consciousness of humanity itself. And that's why it's important to have a values-driven legacy. Now, it's really interesting to me that this week, in preparation for me speaking on legacy, it was sort of bookended by memorial services. Last Sunday, we had the celebration of life service for Reverend Bill Cameron, who served this community in the 80s and 90s and actually beyond. And then yesterday, with Arnold and his beautiful family, we honored the life of his wife, Maddie Brundage, a member of this community who passed away last Sunday, last Sunday. And so I've been really sitting with, what is it that we leave behind? What is the legacy that is in me asking to be shared with others? And I really recognize that the legacy that those two individuals left was living their purpose. As I heard more about Maddie and how she showed up for other people, as I shared and we discussed the way that Bill Cameron showed up for this community and those around him, it's really about living life on purpose and also supporting the principles and the actions that allow us to live a life of purpose with enthusiasm, with faith, and with trust. And Bill Cameron served this community, and we are all of us, living into his legacy. And that's something that I think is really important to acknowledge. Not only are we creating our own legacy, but we are living in somebody else's. We are here because they created the space. We are at a place of human evolution in consciousness because other people did the work. The master teachers and all the followers that continued the work. Now, it was so clear to me, the legacy that Bill Cameron left here. Some of you may have seen it or experienced it, but it was a legacy that wasn't only being shared about, it was something that we were experiencing in the moment. And so his immediate successor, Reverend James Trapp, some of you know who he is and started here while he was here. Bill inspired him into ministry, and Reverend Trapp was there. After Reverend Trapp came Reverend Chris Jackson, who preceded me, and Bill actually inspired Chris into ministry. And then there's me. But as I shared with you before, I'm a product of this community, right? Like, this community raised me up, and so I'm a product of the legacy of Bill, of James, and of Chris. And that legacy of faith is, we're an expression of it. When Bill Cameron came into Unity on the Bay the first time back in the 80s, there were 30 people sitting in an auditorium of almost 900 seats. But he was able to have faith, he was able to have vision, and he was able to know and see that the ways in which he showed up would not only be a benefit to those that were inspired to join him, but for the generations to come. Can we do the same thing? If you look around the room and you see that we are the expression of those legacies, can you also have the vision of us continuing to grow, continuing to expand, continuing to evolve? Yes? 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 That is how we continue the legacy of these great teachers that we've had here at Unity on the Bay, by continuing to have that faith and continuing to be the expressions of the vision and make that vision even bigger. Think about the people that you admire. What is the legacy that they have left in you? If you think about it, what they've left in you is their values. It's their values. Pericles, who is a Greek philosopher and general, said, "What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others." What is it that you are weaving into the lives of others? What is it that you are weaving as your values into the community? How are they showing up in your circles of influence? What are the values that you are so embodying that nobody has to ask you what you value in life, because they are able to see it and experience it in your actions, in the way that you show up for other people, in the way that you show up for humanity? I love that we are clear about our values. If you did the work this past week of doing the practice of figuring out your values, more importantly than sharing those values with other people, it's embodying them so that people can start to feel them. And that's the kind of influence that we get to have when we play life big. Now, we're going to get a little biblical here, just a little bit. But I want to share with you a little bit about the story of Moses. Some of you know the story of Moses. So God guided Moses to move the Israelites who were enslaved in Egypt into the promised land. But actually, Moses never got to the promised land. He was told that he would never be able to go into the promised land. And yet, he had the vision. And he said yes, because he realized that the work that he did would not only bring about freedom from those that were being brought out of Egypt, but eventually the next generation would be able to live into the promised land. Imagine if Moses would have just thought, well, I'm not going to get to see all the fruits of my labor, so I don't know about that. Or imagine if he wouldn't have really taken on his purpose in life and been able to see that not only would it benefit those around him, but it would benefit the future and future generations, to think about the way that he showed up in the world in those kind of big ways. Imagine if he would have not necessarily believed that he was part of the evolution of humanity, of the evolution of consciousness. Another person in the Bible, our master teacher Jesus, our brother in love, he said in Luke chapter 8, verse 16 and 18, "No one after lighting a lamp hides it under a jar or puts it under a bed, but puts it on a lampstand so that those who enter may see the light. Then pay attention to how you listen." This is where he said, listen clearly here. "For those who have, more will be given. And from those who do not have, even what they seem to have will be taken away." Now, Jesus' whole message to all of us was that we are the light of the world. That we are the light of the world. That each of us is an individual expression of that light that we call God. And in our human nature, sometimes we do put that under the bed. We put it under a bushel. We don't think it's worthy of it, or we get scared about it. We have fears, we have judgments about it, and we hide that light even from ourselves. But that's not who we are, right? We already know and trust that the light is already within us. And so the question is, how do we share that light? How do we embody it more fully? We here at Unity know that it is not meant to be hidden, but it is meant to be shared. And it is meant to be that light that brings those that are already open to the idea of who God is within them to an even deeper space of knowing their own power. And so it is for us to recognize the light, to be able to tap into zeal so that we can really live into it, then understand the way that our individualized light through our values and our purpose is meant to specifically be a blessing upon the world, and then just live it, embody it, and share it. And then it goes on to say, so for those who have, more will be given. Well, yes, from those who have their light and they share their light and they put it on that lampstand, they're going to get more of their good reflected back at them. Those who have zeal for life, expressing, embodying it, and really like allowing it to grow, doesn't that allow us to grow in our capacity for zeal when we share that zeal with other people? What happens when you know and see how you are blessing somebody? Don't you feel blessed? It is the power of, as we share something, it is reflected back at us in bigger and brighter ways. It is sort of like the transferring, the imparting of our values into others, and then we get to experience our values even more fully. And I believe that when we bless, we bliss. When we are recognizing the power of our blessing and we bless other people, that is when we truly live in bliss. Letting our own light shine encourages other people to actually recognize their own light. And when we talk about the uplifting of humanity, it's a communal work, right? So that's how we get more and more people to join us in recognizing how we can be in a greater state of consciousness of heaven on earth. I was thinking about it this morning. You know, I would love to live heaven on earth, but I'd love to live heaven on earth with other people there too, right? And so this is how we get to do it. So I've been thinking about how do we leave a legacy? And I looked up, a bunch of different teachers from Oprah and Brené Brown and Tony Robbins. And the reality is that most of them say the exact same thing. In order to leave a lasting legacy, there are basically three components. And the first one is to live your purpose big. Second one is to reveal your values. And the third one is to serve and be generous. So live your purpose big. It's understanding that when we leave a legacy, it can be sometimes daunting, or we think it's a little bit out of reach when we're actually not sure about the direction in which we are going. But that's what purpose gives us. It gives us direction. It gives us energy and power so that when things are coming up and it's not going so easy, or the judgments come up, or the self-imposed limitations, when we know where we are heading, when we know what it is that we are to share, when we know what we are to embody, doesn't that make it easier to move through those self-limiting thoughts, through the judgments that we've placed on ourselves? And so it provides to us direction and energy to be able to share our light. And Unity on the Bay, we're more clear about our purpose, right? Because we have done the work to become more clear with it. And through that, we tap into passion, and it is easier to move through everything, and our capacity for passion continues to grow. As Neil Donald Walsh says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And so ask yourself where you are living too comfortably, where you are playing it too small. Now that we're clear about our purpose, don't just think, all right, this is my purpose. Ask yourself, how will I live my purpose big? How will I do it in big and impactful ways for me and for others? Revealing our values, to me, is simply starting to embodying them more fully. Like I said, you don't have to tell people what you value. We get to show people what we value. And through that, we continue to bring more and more individuals into our own collective to be able to create the life of our dreams for ourselves and for others. Join other people that have similar values. Doesn't that make it easier to embody yours? I think that's one of the reasons why we're here at Unity on the Bay, because we are connected to the values that we believe are important for the world to experience, for us to experience. And so I trust that Unity on the Bay is one of those groups or places where you feel connected to the values, and you feel that as you support and are a part of the collective energy and consciousness of Unity on the Bay, what you are doing is supporting the values that you hold dear to continue on. Unity on the Bay has been around for 96 years. 96 years. Many of us that are in this room will be around for its centennial. And so think about the ways in which we are living into the legacy of those that came before us, but think also about the legacy that we are leaving for the generations to come at Unity on the Bay. What are the seeds that you are planting? Peter Struppel says, legacy is not leaving something for people, it's leaving something in people. The third one, I could talk forever, but I promise I won't. But it's being in service and being generous. And most of you know that I could talk about it forever because my life is as good as it is. And believe me, my life is so good. Like, my life is so good. And my life is good as it is, because I have been of service and been generous. I learned that early on when I stepped into Unity, and I've continued to be in sacred service, serving with my time, serving with my talent, and serving with my treasure. It is knowing that I can extend myself not only to this community, but to humanity itself. Charles Fillmore says, we shall serve for the joy of serving. Prosperity shall flow to us and through us in unending streams of plenty. And so I invite you, as you are living into your values, look for the ways to serve and be embodying your values while you do it. There are so many ways that you can serve here at Unity on the Bay. And those are just all opportunities, not only for you to be of service, but for you to practice your values, whether it's welcoming people into the services as you come in, or helping with accounting, or whatever it is. It's like, what are the values that you will embody as you do those actions? And get into the practice of it and know the way that it blesses those that are a part of this community and a part of your own heaven on earth. And to give generously. And to give generously in many different ways, right? Like, so you can give generously on Sundays, but, you know, one of the things that I thought about a couple of years ago with my husband, we decided to do a will. And wills are an expression of our values. And so I looked at what I valued and what I wanted to do, right? Like, so the places and things and individuals that I wanted to support and I valued in life, I want to support in the afterlife too. And so you better believe that Unity on the Bay is part of my will. You better believe that Unity is a part of my will. And you better believe that my family and those that are lifting up the values that I care about in society and in the world are a part of my will. And I really invite you, I know it's a tender question to ask yourself, but to think about the many different ways in which you can leave a legacy for the things that you care about. Somebody that left a lasting legacy was Charles Fillmore, our co-founder. Now, Charles Fillmore was an interesting fella. One of the interesting things that he believed in is that he could live forever. If he really employed the practices and the principles, he could live forever. And mind you, science is proving that if you live the principles and the practices, you can lead healthier and longer lives. And I really am more inclined to what Andy Warhol says about living forever. He says the idea is not to live forever, it is to create something that will. What are we creating? And how will it have an impact on us, on each other, and on the people that we shall never know, but we trust will be touched by it? We can be passionate about it, and we can be passionate about how we show up in the world. And Charles Fillmore did leave that lasting legacy. He created something that we're all a part of, and now it's up to us to continue that legacy. So the invitation is to just don't play it small. Whatever your purpose is, whatever your values are, don't play it small. Don't hide your light under the bushel. The world is waiting for it, and not only is the world waiting for it, it is waiting to reflect that light back at you. So never repress the zeal, the force that is within you, welling up to do what is yours to do with a mighty springing forward of creating heaven on earth. Live it and share it. Many of you know that my favorite Eric Butterworth quote is, "You are the windows of heaven, and you will be poured out as a blessing. Will you let it pour out as a blessing? Will you let it rain, and let it rain so much that that garden, right, begins to grow and grow and grow?" Have zeal and enthusiasm for being the windows of heaven. Can you have zeal and enthusiasm for being the windows of heaven? Yes? 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 Then now you're going to stand up, you're going to open yourself up, put your hands up, and let us once again affirm together. Through the power of zeal, I am enthusiastic, audacious, and devoted. I live passionately, daringly, and wholeheartedly. This is how we leave a legacy and become bigger than we thought we could be, but exactly the bigness that we were intended to be. Namaste. Thank you so much for visiting our YouTube channel. We post new videos every week to keep you positive, present, and inspired to your divinity. Please click on the subscribe button below and also that notification bell. Remember to share this with your friends and your family, those that you know will be inspired just like you have been. And always remember that we love you, that we bless you, that we behold the Christ in you, and we see you doing great things. Thanks and take care.